He saw a tiny baby wrapped in a dirty cloth, breathing weakly inside a garbage bin. He was just a homeless boy searching trash cans for leftover food, but that moment changed both of their lives forever. Kofi had been walking around for hours, looking for something to eat. He had checked 3 bins already and found nothing but rotten tomatoes and smelly rice. He was tired. His slippers were almost tearing apart, and his stomach kept making noise. Then he heard a small sound. It wasn't a cat or a rat, something different. He stopped, looked around, then the sound came again, a weak, soft cry. He went closer to the second bin near the back of the chop bar. The place smelled bad, but he didn't care. He pulled the piece of cardboard on top and looked inside. That's when he saw the baby wrapped in a wet, dirty cloth. The baby's eyes were barely open. Its lips were dry. Kofi just stood there for some seconds. He didn't know what to do. He had never carried a baby before. He didn't even know how to hold one, but he could see the baby was weak. If he left it there, it would die. He looked around. No one was there. The road was quiet. Slowly he put his hands inside and lifted the baby. It felt so light, like holding a small bag of rice. The baby made a little noise, then coughed. Kofi felt his chest beating fast. He didn't have food. He didn't have money. He didn't even have a place to sleep. But now, somehow, this baby was his problem. The first thing he thought of was to take it to the police station. But then he remembered how the police usually treated street boys like him. They would ask him plenty questions, maybe even accuse him of stealing the baby. He didn't want trouble. The hospital came to his mind next, but that one was also a problem. No money. And the nurses at the clinic near the market were known for shouting at people who couldn't pay. Kofi looked at the baby again. It made a small sound, like it was trying to cry but didn't have the strength. Its mouth moved slowly, as if looking for milk. He thought of Ama, the woman who sold porridge by the bus stop every morning. Sometimes, if she had left over, she gave him a small cup for free. Maybe she would know what to do, but it was already evening. By now Ama would be home. Kofi decided to walk towards the old wooden bench near the taxi rank where he sometimes slept at night. It was not the safest place, but at least he knew it. He could think there. As he walked, he noticed how people looked at him. Some just stared and kept walking. Others frowned, whispering to each other. One man even said out loud, "Ei, where is this boy going with a baby?" but didn't bother to stop him. Kofi held the baby close, trying to block the cold air with his shirt. He walked faster. By the time he reached the bench, the street lights had started coming on. The baby's breathing was still weak, and Kofi could feel it getting colder. He sat down, wondering what to do next. He remembered something. Near the market there was a woman who sold second-hand clothes. She kept a pile of old baby clothes and blankets in a box. Sometimes mothers came to buy them cheap. Kofi stood up again and began walking towards her stall. When he got there, the place was almost closed. The woman was packing her things. "Auntie," Kofi called softly. She looked up and saw him holding the baby. "Ei, whose child is that?" Kofi didn't answer straight. "Please, do you have any old cloth to cover the baby? It's cold." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Is it your baby?" "No, auntie. I found it." "You found it?" she repeated, like she didn't believe him. Kofi nodded quickly. "Please, auntie, it will die if it gets colder." The woman looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. She reached into her box and pulled out a faded baby blanket. "Here, but you, be careful. People will think bad things." "Thank you," Kofi said, wrapping the baby tightly. The baby's face relaxed a little. He walked back to the bench. By now, the market was quiet. Most shops had closed, and only a few street sellers remained, shouting to sell their last goods for the day. Kofi sat on the bench again, thinking the baby would need food, but babies didn't eat bread or gari. They drank milk. He had no milk. He thought about going to knock on someone's door to ask for help, but he knew most people wouldn't open for a street boy at night. He decided to wait till morning. That night, Kofi didn't sleep much. Every time the baby made a small sound, he checked to see if it was still breathing. He held it close, using his own body to keep it warm. His own hunger was bad, but somehow, it didn't matter as much as before. When the sky started to get light, Kofi got up. His legs were stiff and his back hurt from the bench. He walked towards Ama's porridge stand. Ama was setting up her table when she saw him. "Kofi, you are early today," she stopped when she saw the baby. "Ah, where did you get a baby?" Kofi told her what happened. Ama's eyes opened wide, and she shook her head. "This world, people can be wicked," she said. Ama poured some porridge into a small cup and gave it to Kofi. "I don't have baby milk, but maybe you can try this with a spoon. Just a little, not too hot." Kofi nodded. He sat on the side and carefully dipped a spoon into the porridge, blowing on it to cool it. The baby swallowed a little, but most of it dribbled down its chin. Still, it was something. Ama came over and wiped the baby's face with a clean cloth. "Kofi, you can't keep a baby like this. You have to find help." "I know," Kofi said quietly, "but where?" Ama looked around like she was thinking. "There's one woman in the next area. She had a shop here before. She just had a baby last year. Maybe she can tell you what to do. Her name is Auntie Mansa." Kofi asked where the woman stayed. Ama gave him directions, and he set off, holding the baby close. The morning sun was getting hotter, but Kofi didn't mind. At least the baby was wrapped now, not shaking like last night. When he got to the area Ama described, he saw small houses made from wood and sheet metal. He asked a man sitting outside where Auntie Mansa lived, and the man pointed to a blue door. Kofi knocked gently. A woman's voice answered. "Who is it?" I'm looking for Auntie Mansa," Kofi said. The door opened a little. A woman in a wrapper looked out. She saw Kofi and then her eyes went straight to the baby in his arms. "Whose baby is that?" she asked sharply. Kofi told her the story quickly. She opened the door wider and told him to come in. Inside, the room was small but neat. A smell of baby powder and cooked rice filled the air. In the corner there was a baby cot. Auntie Mansa told him to sit. She took the baby from his arms and unwrapped it, checking its skin and touching its forehead. "This child is weak. It hasn't eaten in a long time." She went to a shelf, brought out a bottle and filled it with warm milk. She fed the baby slowly, watching it carefully. Kofi just sat there, watching. The baby drank like it had been waiting for this all its life. When the bottle was empty, Auntie Mansa sighed. "You can't take care of this baby on the street. It needs proper feeding, every few hours, and clean clothes, and a place to sleep." Kofi nodded. "I know, but I can't leave it. If I leave it, maybe no one will care." The woman looked at him for a long moment. "Why did you take it? Most boys in your situation would have walked away." Kofi shrugged. "I don't know. I couldn't." Auntie Mansa told him she could keep the baby for now, but they would need to inform someone. Maybe social welfare. Kofi didn't like that idea. He had seen government homes before. Too many children, not enough food. Some of the older boys there were dangerous. "I'll help you," she said. "But you must be responsible. No running away if things get hard." "I won't run," Kofi said firmly. For the next few days, Kofi stayed around Auntie Mansa's place. He helped her with small chores, fetching water, washing plates, going to buy items from the shop. She taught him how to hold the baby properly, how to clean it, how to change the cloth when it was wet. The baby began to look a little stronger. Its cheeks were still small, but its eyes opened more often now. Kofi started to feel something strange, a kind of happiness he hadn't felt in years. He liked when the baby's fingers grabbed his thumb. He liked when it looked at him, even though it couldn't talk. But not everyone was happy. One afternoon, when Kofi went to buy soap, two boys from the street called him. Kofi, we hear you're now a father." One of them laughed. "It's not my baby," Kofi said quickly. "Then why are you carrying it around like it's yours?" the other boy asked. "You think people will give you more money when they see you with a baby? You're smart." Kofi walked away without answering. He didn't want trouble, but inside he felt uneasy. He knew some people might think he was using the baby to get sympathy. One evening, Auntie Mansa told him she had spoken to a nurse who might help get the baby checked at the clinic for free. But next morning they went together. The nurse was kind but serious. She said the baby was underweight and needed regular feeding and checkups. She also asked for the baby's name. Kofi looked at Auntie Mansa. They didn't know. "You can give it a name for now," the nurse said, "so we can write something in our records." Kofi thought for a moment. "Kwame," he said. "Because I found him on a Saturday." Kofi started saying the name softly whenever he held him. "Small Kwame," he'd whisper, and sometimes the baby's eyes would open a little, like he was listening. Days turned into a week. Kofi began to feel like he finally had something in his life that mattered, even though he still slept on the wooden bench most nights. His mind was always on Kwame. Sometimes, after helping Auntie Mansa in the morning, he would walk to the market and try to do small jobs carrying loads, cleaning tables just to get coins for baby powder or soap. But money was never enough, and food for himself was still a problem. Many days he gave what little food he had to Kwame instead. One afternoon, as Kofi was returning from the market, he saw two men standing outside Auntie Mansa's house. They were talking to her in low voices. Kofi's steps slowed. Something in his chest felt tight. When he got closer, one of the men turned and looked at him. His eyes stayed on the bundle in Kofi's arms. "This the boy?" the man asked. Auntie Mansa gave Kofi a quick look that said, "Stay calm." "Yes, that's him," she said slowly. The man stepped forward. "We hear you found a baby. We work with the community office. We need to ask questions." Inside the house, the men sat down and started asking things like, "Where exactly did you find him? What time? Who else was there?" Kofi answered, telling the truth. But he noticed how one of the men kept writing in a small book while the other just stared at him like he was trying to catch him in a lie. When they were done, they said, "We'll have to report this. The baby can't just stay here. There are rules." Kofi's stomach twisted. "You mean you're taking him? That's not for you to decide," the man replied. "We'll come back." After they left, Kofi sat in the corner holding Kwame tightly. "They can't take him. They won't take him," he said under his breath. That night he barely slept. He kept thinking about the men's faces, the way they looked at Kwame like he was just a case file, not a person. The next morning he made up his mind if they came to take Kwame he would run. 2 days later, the men came back. This time, They weren't smiling. "We've arranged for the baby to be moved to a children's home," one of them said. "Pack his things." Kofi's heart started beating fast. He looked at Auntie Mansa, but she seemed unsure, like she didn't want to fight them. When one of the men reached for Kwame, Kofi stepped back. "No," he said quietly. "Boy, don't start trouble," the man warned. But Kofi didn't move. His hands tightened around Kwame. "You don't know what will happen to him there. You don't care." The man's eyes narrowed. "This is not your decision." Kofi's legs felt like they were moving on their own. One moment he was standing in the room, the next he was out the door, running as fast as he could with Kwame held close. He ran through narrow alleys, past small shops, over open drains. People shouted after him, but he didn't stop. By the time he slowed down, his chest was burning and sweat was pouring down his face. He was in a part of town he didn't know well, smaller houses, fewer people. He found an old shed behind a locked store and slipped inside. It smelled of dust and engine oil, but it was hidden. He sat down, breathing hard. Kwame was awake, looking up at him with big eyes. Kofi wiped his face with his sleeve. "Don't worry, small Kwame. I won't let them take you." The next days were hard. Kofi couldn't go back to Auntie Mansa's place. He slept in different spots each night, under a wooden table at the market, in an unfinished building, once even behind a church. He tried to keep Kwame fed by asking mothers if they could spare milk. Some helped, some chased him away. Every cough or sneeze from Kwame made Kofi panic. He knew the baby needed better care, but he also knew the children's home was no place for him. One morning, while sitting near a shop, a young woman came out holding a baby of her own. She looked at Kofi for a long moment, then said, "Come, here." Kofi hesitated, but she didn't look angry. She took one look at Kwame and said, "This baby needs proper food. Wait here." She went back inside and returned with a small tin of milk powder and a clean feeding bottle. "I'm not rich, but I can't watch a baby suffer," she said. Kofi thanked her over and over. That night, Kwame slept with a full stomach for the first time in days, but the relief didn't last long. 3 days later, while Kofi was at the market, he spotted the two men from the community office again, this time talking to a police officer. The officer was pointing in different directions like he was asking where to search. Kofi's heart sank. They were still looking for him. He knew he couldn't keep running forever, but he also knew he couldn't just hand Kwame over. That night, as he sat in the dark corner of an unfinished building, he started thinking of something he hadn't considered before leaving the city. He thought about going to Ada, where his father used to live. He didn't know if anyone there would remember him, but maybe it was far enough that the men wouldn't find him. It would mean walking for days, maybe more. But staying here meant getting caught. The next morning, he wrapped Kwame tightly, packed the little milk powder he had into a small plastic bag, and started walking. The streets were getting quieter now. The few people passing by gave him strange looks, but nobody asked anything. He didn't even know where he was going exactly. All he knew was that Kwame couldn't sleep outside in the cold forever. There was an old kiosk near the lorry station that Kofi sometimes used when it rained. The owner was hardly around, and the lock was broken. Maybe they could stay there for the night. When he reached the kiosk, he pushed the door gently and went in. It smelled of dust and old wood, but at least it was dry. He sat on the floor with Kwame still in his arms. Kwame's breathing was still slow, but at least he wasn't crying. Kofi looked at his tiny fingers. They were cold. He removed his own shirt, folded it, and wrapped Kwame with it before putting the dirty cloth back around. It wasn't much, but it was warmer than before. His stomach growled again. He remembered the woman who sold porridge nearby in the mornings. Maybe she still had something left over from the day. He got up and walked towards her wooden table. When he reached, the woman was washing her pots. "Auntie, please," Kofi said quietly. "Do you have any porridge left?" She looked at him, then at the small bundle in his hands. "What's that?" she asked, coming closer. Kofi hesitated. "It's a baby. I found him in the dustbin." The woman frowned, then looked around as if expecting someone else to appear. "Dustbinware behind the chop bar," he said. She put down the bowl she was washing and came to take a closer look. When she saw Kwame's lips, she shook her head. "This baby is hungry, and you too, I'm sure." She went inside her small kiosk and brought out a small cup of warm porridge. She gave the cup to Kofi, then disappeared inside again and came out with a small feeding bottle that still had some milk inside. "Hold it like this," she said, showing him how to tilt the bottle into Kwame's mouth. Kofi tried. At first, Kwame didn't suck, but then he started drinking slowly. Kofi felt something strange inside him, a mix of relief and fear. "You can't keep that baby," the woman said after a while. "You should take it to the police." Kofi didn't answer. The thought of the police scared him. They would ask questions, maybe blame him, maybe lock him up. He had seen it happen before. Instead, he said, "Can I stay here a little? Just until Kwame sleeps." The woman sighed. "Fine, but you must decide what to do before morning." Kofi nodded, but inside, he didn't know what his decision would be. All he knew was that he couldn't leave Kwame in a dustbin. That night, he sat under the shed with Kwame wrapped in his shirt, listening to the sound of distant cars and the occasional barking of dogs. He didn't sleep much. Every time made a small noise. He checked to see if he was still breathing. By morning, Kofi's body felt stiff. His back hurt from leaning against the wall all night, but he didn't care. Kwame was still in his arms, breathing softly. His skin was warmer than before, which gave him some relief. The porridge seller came out of her kiosk, carrying a bucket of water. She looked at him and shook her head. "You didn't sleep at all?" she asked. Kofi just shrugged. "I was watching Kwame." She poured some water into a small bowl and gave it to him. "Wash your face. You look like someone who's been fighting all night." Kofi splashed the cold water on his face. It woke him up a bit. His stomach growled again, but he didn't want to ask for more food. "Listen," the woman said, "you can't carry that child around like this. People will start asking questions. If the police see you, you'll be in trouble. Take the baby to social welfare or a clinic." Kofi didn't answer. He didn't even know where social welfare was, and the clinics cost money. The woman saw his hesitation. "You don't have anyone? No family here?" He shook his head. "My mother, she died when I was small. My father left long before that. I've been moving around." She sighed. "Kofi, this is not your fight. You're just a boy yourself." But as Kofi looked at Kwame, he felt something heavy in his chest. He knew she was right. He had nothing. Not even a proper place to sleep. But leaving Kwame somewhere felt wrong. "I'll think about it," he said quietly. The woman went back to her cooking but kept glancing at him. Around mid-morning, some of the market women started setting up their stalls. People passed by, some staring, some ignoring him completely. A man selling phone accessories stopped and looked at the bundle in Kofi's arms. "That's yours?" the man asked. Kofi shook his head. "No, I found him." The man raised his eyebrows. "Found him where? In the dustbin?" The man let out a low whistle. This world. But be careful. If someone says you stole him, you're finished." Kofi said nothing. He was already thinking about moving away from the market area. Too many eyes. By midday, the sun was getting hot. Kwame started fussing again, making small whimpering sounds. Kofi remembered there was a small chemist shop near the junction. Maybe they had baby food. When he got there, the shopkeeper, a middle-aged man with glasses, looked at him suspiciously. "Where's the mother?" the man asked. Kofi shifted his weight. "I don't know. I found the baby." The man frowned. "Then take him to the police. We can't sell baby formula to just anybody without knowing what's going on." Kofi turned away before the man could say more. His feet felt heavy. He didn't know what to do next. He ended up sitting under a big tree near the lorry park. The noise of trotro mates shouting destinations filled the air. A few kids were playing nearby, chasing each other. An old man selling roasted groundnuts came over. He handed Kofi a small paper cone filled with peanuts. "Here, you look like you need this." Kofi smiled faintly. "Thank you." As he ate, the old man asked, "Whose child is that?" "I don't know," Kofi replied. "I found him." The old man nodded, slowly, as if he'd seen too many strange things in life to be surprised. "Then you must decide quick. Babies are blessings, but they're also a heavy load." Kofi didn't reply. He just kept looking at the small face resting against his chest. When evening came again, he knew he couldn't spend another night outside with Kwame. He needed to find somewhere safe, at least for the night. He thought of the small church near the railway line. The pastor there sometimes gave him leftover bread after service. Maybe they could help. By the time Kofi reached the church, the sun was almost gone. The building was quiet, except for the sound of someone sweeping inside. The door was open. He stepped in slowly. The place smelled faintly of dust and candle wax. "Hey, who's there?" a voice called. "It's me, Kofi," he answered. The pastor's wife came out from one of the side rooms, broom in hand. She looked tired but surprised to see him. Kofi at this time. "What happened?" Kofi shifted Kwame in his arms so she could see her eyes widened. "Where did you get a baby from?" "I found him in the dustbin some nights ago," he said quietly. She put the broom aside and came closer. She touched Kwame's forehead gently. He's warm. Not too hot though." "Is he eating?" "I gave him some milk." "Not much." She sighed deeply. "You can't keep him outside like that. Wait here." She disappeared into the back room and came back with a small blanket. "Wrap him with this. You'll both sleep inside tonight." Kofi's shoulders dropped in relief. "Thank you, Ma." They set up a small mattress in one corner. Kwame was placed on the blanket, and for the first time, Kofi could stretch out and rest properly. The pastor came in later and was told everything. He listened quietly, then said, "Tomorrow morning, we'll go to the police station together. They have to know about the child." Kofi's stomach tightened. He didn't want to go to the police. What if they say I stole him? "They won't. We'll explain everything," the pastor said. "But you can't just keep the baby. You don't have a house, food or money." Kofi stayed silent. He knew the man was right, but it still felt wrong. The thought of handing Kwame over to strangers made his chest ache. That night, even though he slept under a roof, he didn't sleep well. He kept waking up to check if Kwame was still breathing. In the morning, the pastor gave him bread and tea. Then they walked together to the police station. The place was noisy, people talking, a phone ringing somewhere, a TV playing, tech news in the corner. A policewoman with a stern face came to the counter. "Yes, what is it?" she asked. The pastor spoke first. "This boy found a baby abandoned in the market dustbin some nights ago. We thought it best to bring him here." The woman raised her eyebrows and looked at Kofi. "Found? You're sure?" "Yes, madam," Kofi said quickly. "I didn't take him from anyone. He was just lying there." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right. We'll contact social welfare." She took Kwame gently from Kofi's arms. He felt a strange emptiness the moment the baby left. "His hands, you can go," the policewoman said. Kofi stood frozen, watching as Kwame was carried into another room. His tiny head rested against the woman's shoulder, his eyes half closed. Kofi's chest burned, as if something vital had been ripped away. He wanted to run after her to take Kwame back, but his feet wouldn't move. Outside, the pastor put a hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing, Kofi." Kofi nodded, but it felt like a lie. The right thing shouldn't hurt this much. The market noises, Stratromates shouting, women haggling blurred into a dull roar as he walked away. The pastor offered to walk with him, but Kofi shook his head. He needed to be alone. That night, under the old bridge where he slept, Kofi couldn't rest. The air stank of open drains, but his mind was on Kwame's weak cry, his cold fingers in that filthy dustbin. What if the children's home was like the stories he'd heard, crowded, underfed, a place where small boys like Kwame got lost? He tossed on the hard ground, hunger gnawing at him, but it was nothing compared to the fear of never seeing Kwame again. By morning, Kofi made up his mind. He couldn't just wait. He had to find Kwame to know he was safe. He walked back to the police station, his heart hammering. The same policewoman was at the counter scribbling in a ledger. "You again," she said, frowning. "What now? Where's Kwame?" Kofi asked, his voice steadier than he felt. "The baby I brought. I need to know where they took him," she sighed, flipping through her papers. "Social welfare sent him to Hope Children's Center near the hospital. That's all you get. Now go." Kofi nodded and left, his steps quickening. The children's home wasn't far, a 40-minute walk across the market and past the lorry park. He didn't know what he'd do when he got there, but he couldn't stay away. Hope Children's Center was a white building with a blue gate, its sign faded but proud. Kofi lingered across the street, watching kids kick a ragged football in the yard. No sign of Kwame. His stomach twisted. Had they moved him already? A woman in a green uniform swept near the gate. Kofi approached, keeping his voice low. "Please, Ma, I'm looking for a baby they brought yesterday. His name's Kwame." She eyed him, broom pausing. "You his brother?" "No," Kofi said. "I found him in a dustbin. I need to see he's okay." Her face softened. "Wait here." She disappeared inside, leaving Kofi shifting nervously. An older woman in a neat wrapper came out, her glasses glinting in the sun. "I'm Madam Grace, the manager. You're the boy who found the baby?" "Yes, Ma," Kofi said. "I called him Kwame for Saturday." She nodded. "He's in the nursery week, but we're feeding him. Come." Kofi followed her through the gate, his heart pounding. The nursery was a small room with cots lined against the walls. Kwame lay in one, wrapped in a clean blanket, his chest rising and falling. Kofi knelt beside him, brushing his tiny hand. "You're safe, small Kwame," he whispered. Madame Grace watched. "Most boys your age would have walked away. Why didn't you?" Kofi shrugged. "I couldn't leave him to die." She nodded. "Come back Sunday. Visitors are allowed then." Kofi left with a spark of hope. He returned every Sunday bringing small gifts, a rattle, a soft cloth urn from odd jobs at the market. Kwame grew, his eyes brighter, his grip stronger. By age 2, he wobbled toward Kofi during visits, giggling and clutching his fingers. The staff called Kofi Kwame's brother, and Madame Grace let him hold him longer each time. But life on the streets was still hard. Kofi scavenged for food, slept under the bridge, and dodged questions about Kwame. One day, while sweeping at a mechanic shop for extra coins, the owner, Mr. Teta, noticed his work ethic. "You're always here, Kofi. Want to learn engines?" Kofi's eyes widened. "Me, sir?" "Yes, you," Mr. Teta said, chuckling. "Show up early and I'll teach you." Kofi threw himself into the work. He learned to fix carburetors, change oil and tighten bolts. Every set he went into a tin for Kwame's future. He moved from the bridge to a shared room with another apprentice, a cramped space but a step up. His visits to Kwame never stopped, each one fueling his drive. When Kwame was 4, Madame Grace called Kofi into her office. "You're like family to him," she said. "He cries when you leave. Have you thought about being more?" Kofi's heart raced. "You mean take him?" "Not yet," she said. "You're young, maybe 17, but get a steady job, a place to live, and you that could apply for guardianship. I'll help." The idea seemed impossible, but it lit a fire in Kofi. He worked harder, taking night shifts at the shop. He joined a community literacy class to read better, dreaming of helping Kwame with school. He saved enough to rent a small concrete room, mattress, a stool, a single bulb. One day as Kofi walked through the market, he saw a crowd near the chop bar where he'd found Kwame. A woman screamed, "Thief!" A young man sprinted past, clutching a purse. Kofi didn't think he ran. His legs burned, memories of Kwame's tiny form pushing him forward. He caught the thief in an alley, wrestling the purse free. The crowd cheered as he returned it, the woman calling him a good boy. That moment changed how people saw Kofi. No longer just that homeless boy, he was the one who did right. It gave him courage. When Kwame was 6, Kofi applied for guardianship. The process was grueling: forms, inspections, questions about his past, but Madam Grace vouched for him, and Mr. Teta wrote a letter about his steady job. On Kwame's 7th birthday, the papers were signed. Kofi took Kwame home to their small room. Kwame carried his teddy bear, his eyes wide with wonder. "Is this ours, Brother Kofi?" he asked. "Yes," Kofi said, smiling. "Ours." Years later, at Kwame's 10th birthday, their room was alive with laughter. Auntie Mansa brought groundnut soup, the pastor's wife a cake. Kwame, now in school, with a scholarship from a local NGO, talked of building aeroplanes. Kofi, now 20, had a steady job and a reputation as the market's hero. As Kwame blew out his candle, Kofi looked at him, then at the city lights outside. The boy who'd found a baby in a dustbin had shocked everyone, running from authorities, chasing thieves, fighting for a child when he had nothing. Kwame had a family now, a future. And Kofi, no longer just surviving, had a purpose. Their lives had changed forever, built on a single choice in a dark alley, one that saved them both.